Hello everyone, Shintobean here with the first Warhammer Combat Cards video of 2024. So the other day I did a survey asking players what they most want to see in Warhammer Combat Cards this year, with 5 possible responses. So let's take a look at the results and discuss each one. So 65% of respondents said they want to make it easier to get the cards you want in the game. Currently in the game, you are able to get lots of cards through just playing the game, but the vast majority of those cards are not cards that you need. And if we go to the collection, of course, the collection is filled with many cards that I have not upgraded, mainly because either I don't use them, or maybe I do use them, but they don't actually need to be upgraded to any higher level than they already are to fulfill their purpose. So currently I have 144 different cards that could be upgraded, that I've chosen not to. But of course, from the various packs that you open, you continue to get copies of these cards that you don't want to upgrade. Now, this is a collectible card game, so I do understand that opening packs of random cards is part of the fun, and that's something that's not going to change. But I think there are several ways that they could make it easier, or at least give you a little bit more control over what cards you're getting. But that is a topic I'd like to cover in another video in more depth. So let's move on and talk about some of the other responses. So 17% said that they want to see new game modes or mechanics. Of course, recently they released the Apocalypse mode, which is a 400-point game mode, currently only casual, so there's no ranked version or anything. And I think it was last year that they started doing these 400-point campaigns as well, which have been a lot of fun. In another survey, the vast majority of players said that they enjoyed these 400-point max level events more than any other game mode, because you get to use all of your strongest cards in a single deck. Additionally, in the weekly campaigns, they have been using a lot more modifiers, but I think it would still be beneficial if they freshened up the gameplay by introducing new mechanics somehow, and I think there is one in the works. If we go back to the roadmap that they released late last year, detachment rules is one thing that I believe is next in development. And they haven't said anything about it, but just hazarding a guess here, I would imagine it has something to do with the keywords on the cards, and if you make a deck with all of the same keyword, it gives you some sort of bonus, which would be really awesome if that's what it turns out to be, because I like making thematic decks anyway, but we'll just have to wait to see what that is. Let me know if you have any ideas for interesting new game modes or mechanics that you'd like to see in this game. Moving on, 12% said that they want to see meaningful balance changes in the game. Now currently, they've been doing balance passes at the beginning of every new season, corresponding with the battle pass. For the last few, they have been specifically buffing cards of the same type that appear in the battle pass. Of course, for the current season, we have the Call Battle Pass, which is Adeptus Mechanicus, and several of those cards have received major buffs. And indeed, many of those targeted buffs to the Battle Pass cards have been very heavy-handed to a bit of an extreme degree. I think some of the most serious offenders that come to mind off the top of my head are from the Deathwatch Battle Pass. And granted, some of these cards used to be pretty useless. They had very low stats before, but then they buffed them by such an extreme amount that now they're just used in every deck, and they're just too strong, I think. For example, this guy with Deathblow, an 11-point card with Deathblow that deals this amount of damage, it's pretty ridiculous. This biker as well, he used to be really terrible, but they just gave him a massive melee attack, and now you see him all the time. So, while I am grateful for balance passes that are significant enough that they do change up the decks that you have, I think they could maybe tone it down a little bit for some of these cards, while also buffing certain cards that have remained useless all this time, which is often because they just have a trait that doesn't synergize with any warlord, or their stats are too low compared to other cards of the same point cost. Moving on, only 4% of respondents said they want to see new traits in the game, although I think most people would be open to more traits considering the number of cards in the game. The most recent one, of course, was the anti-infantry trait, which I think is a pretty situational one, especially on a lot of these cards. It doesn't really improve them much, but I think as long as there are traits that are useful enough that they're worth taking instead of the other traits that people always use, like Shield, Fear, Medicae, Barrage, Psionic Blast, traits that can compete with those in terms of utility. I think that would definitely benefit the game to have more diversity when it comes to traits. And finally, just 2% of players said they want to see more new cards in the game. Although, of course, I'm sure the majority of players do like having new cards added to the game, and recently they've been adding new cards very quickly. I think maybe 2 years ago the game really seemed to start stagnating because of how slowly they were releasing new cards, but now they've really sped the pace up. We've got these cards that you can buy from the shop with money. We've got these new army boxes and also combat patrols. Many of these include new cards. So we're seeing a lot more cards added to the game as a sort of a premium card that you have to purchase with real money, whereas in the past many of the new cards were introduced through the mission rewards in the campaign. More recently, we've just been seeing old cards recycled in these, which at times can be quite useful, especially if it's a warlord like this. This is real nice, getting multiple copies of a warlord as a mission reward. Of course, the card pool in the game is currently at, looks like 758, and that's not even including some of the limited edition cards like the Red Gobbo. So, massive amount of cards in the game, which will continue to grow. I think there's no point in trying to restrict the amount of new cards added to the game, but it would be nice if at least new warlords would be made available to all players, which hasn't been the case recently with some of the Supreme Commanders, which are also some of the most powerful cards in the game. Although they have been adding cards to the general pool. I mean, the Lords of War are sort of an exception to that, but they've been adding a lot of these premium cards to the general pool so that everyone can eventually get access to them even without paying money, which is nice. But let me know what you think about the changes that have been made to the game in recent months, and also what you would like to see in Warhammer Combat Cards this year. But that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.